Let's crochet a bear Lovey Snuggler. Have you crocheted a project using chenille or chunky yarn yet? Today we'll be trying out chenille yarn. Hi, I'm Minnie from This and That Minis. Thanks for joining me. Whether you decide to crochet this cute and cuddly bear using a single color or two, it's sure to become a favorite with the recipient.
Let's get started. The materials needed for this project are 2 colors of chenille yarn, one for the body, one for the paws, a stitch marker, a yarn needle, a pair of scissors, and a crochet hook. Today I'm using a size H, and a good amount of stuffing, as well as these safety eyes. I used 24mm here. Now if you don't have any of these safety eyes, just crochet 6 single crochets in a magic circle and sew them on. They work just fine as eyes. To begin, we need a magic ring, and we're going to crochet 7 single crochets in the magic ring. And 7. We'll close that ring gently, as this is chenille yarn and it kind of shreds a little easily. And to finish off the ring, we won't slip stitch and chain 1. We're going to continue with a single crochet at the beginning of the last round, and that will count as the first single crochet of the next round. And we'll just continue working in the round until we're finished. Placing a stitch marker though, another single crochet in that same stitch.
Now this next round will be a round of increases.
2 single crochets in the next stitch. Two single crochets in the next stitch, and continue on until we get to the end of the row, where you should have 14 stitches. Two single crochets in that last stitch, and then a single crochet to begin the next round. This round will be a single crochet, which we just did, and 2 single crochets in the next stitch, a single crochet in the next stitch, and 2 single crochets in the next. We will continue this pattern till the end of the round.
I will do these stitches off camera and meet back up with you at the end of the round.
And 2 single crochets in that last stitch. Followed by a single crochet for this next round. In this round, we'll do 2 single crochets and an increase, 2 single crochets and an increase all around. We already have 1 single crochet, so another single crochet in the next stitch, 2 single crochets in the next stitch, 1 single crochet in the next stitch, 1 single crochet in the next stitch, followed by 2 single crochets in the next stitch. I will meet back up with you at the end of the round. And we'll place 2 single crochets in this last stitch for a total of 28 stitches. And a single crochet in the next stitch to start the next round, where we'll do 3 single crochets in the next 3 stitches, followed by 2 single crochets in the next stitch. We already have the first stitch done, so there's 2 and 3 and 2 single crochets in the next stitch. One single crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. Followed by 2 single crochets in the next stitch. We'll continue that sequence all around till we meet back up at the end of the row. And placing 2 single crochets in that last stitch. We'll single crochet in the next 4 stitches, followed by 2 single crochets in the 5th stitch. There's 4, 2 single crochet increase in the 5th stitch, and repeat that again with 4 single crochets in the next 4 stitches. We will repeat that all around until we get back to the beginning of the round. And place 2 single crochets in the next stitch, and that should give you a total of 42 stitches. There's 1, and 2. This is the last round of increases. We'll do a single crochet in the next 5 stitches,
followed by 2 single crochets increase in the next stitch.
We'll continue that all around until we meet back up here at the end of the row. 5 single crochets in the next 5 stitches, followed by 2 single crochets in the next stitch. And then placing 2 single crochets in that last stitch for a total of 49 stitches. For the next 6 rows, we're just going to do a single crochet all around, with 49 stitches at the end of each row. I will meet back up with you at the end of the
12th row.
And a single crochet in that last stitch. For the next round will be a round of decreases. Single crochet in the next 4 stitches, and a decrease in the next stitch.
I found it's not necessary to do an invisible decrease. It's not visible with this chunky yarn.
Single crochet in the next 4 stitches, followed by a decrease in the next stitch. And repeat that pattern all around until we get back to the beginning of the row. And here we'll have a decrease in the last stitch. This round will be 3 single crochets in the next 3 stitches, followed by a decrease.
In the 4th stitch.
There's 3, and a decrease in that 4th stitch. Three single crochets and a decrease in that 4th stitch. Continue on and I'll meet back up with you at the end of the row. Decrease in the last 2 stitches. And now before moving on, we'll get started on the muzzle. Start with a slip knot. And a chain of 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. In that first stitch from the hook, we're going to do an increase. Place 2 single crochets in that first stitch. And 2.
And place a single crochet in the next 4 stitches.
You should have 1 stitch left at the end of the row. We're going to do an increase in that last stitch. So place 4 single crochets in that last stitch. And as you saw, your work turned naturally to the other side. We're going to place a single crochet in the next 5 stitches. In the next stitch will be an increase. We will place 4 single crochets in that last stitch. A single crochet in the next 6 stitches. And in this next stitch will be an increase. We will place 4 single crochets in this next stitch. We will place a single crochet in the next 6 stitches. And in this next stitch will be an increase. We will place 4 single crochets in this next stitch. And then a single crochet in the next 8 stitches. We will do a single crochet in the next 9 stitches. And then we'll do a slip stitch in that 10th stitch. And pull your tail through your work and give it a gentle tug. And that completes your little muzzle. If you have one of those little safety noses, this would be a good place to place that right in the center with a row up. I do not have one of those safety noses, so I will show you how to stitch one on to the muzzle. Grabbing your yarn the same color as your head, place it on the needle, and you'll need a piece of yarn about 12-13 inches long. Finding the center of your muzzle, we're going to go up 1 row and over to the left a stitch. Pulling through and leaving enough tail underneath to tie on to these tails from your muzzle. Here is the center stitch. Place your needle 1 stitch to the right of the center. And leave that laying gently on top without pulling tight. We're going to go into that same stitch to the left and do that 1 more time. Not pulling tight. Inserting into that same stitch to the right, pulling your yarn through without pulling it tight. We will go down to the center of your muzzle and come up from the underneath that stitch that's in the center. And making a triangle, we will put this next stitch in that same stitch to the right. Going over to the stitch to the left, we will place our needle, pulling up gently and going back down to this middle stitch here, creating a triangle. And always just pulling gently. Back into the stitch to the right. We'll go back down to that point. We're just slowly filling in that hole there. So back into the left stitch and back down to the center stitch. We should have just 1 little space in the center. We'll try to cover that up with 1 more going into the left and bringing that down over to the right. Coming up through that middle stitch there, we're going to go underneath these rows from left to right and finding that center stitch underneath those. And do that one more time. Up through the center, underneath those center rows, and into that hole in the very center. And that should cover up. Coming up back into the center, down at the bottom of that nose. And we'll go down one stitch, pulling gently back up into that center there, and do that one more time. Back down one stitch, pulling gently, and that would create your nose on your muzzle. And tying that off with one of your other tails inside the muzzle. Gently, and we'll just leave those ties there as part of the filling. And now your little muzzle is ready to be sewn onto your face.
Don't worry about the ears and the eyes. We'll get there in a minute.
And holding the bottom of that muzzle along that fourth line, we're going to place another stitch marker on this side of the face. I'm going to begin stitching at about 5 o'clock here on the muzzle. And just the bottom loop only. Leaving enough tail underneath to tie off. And continue sewing on around until we get to about 7 o'clock on this side of the muzzle. And here we are at about that 7 o'clock spot down here. It doesn't have to be exact, just enough of a pocket in here to put a little bit of stuffing, but just enough to fill that muzzle. And that looks just about right. And we'll just continue sewing this muzzle shut here. And then tie off with a couple of knots. When you're finished, poking your needle on into the inside of the head here and pull through. Cutting off and tie those two end pieces into a couple of knots on the inside. There we go.
And now let's make the ears.
Going back to your body color, the light tan I am using, we're going to create a magic circle. We're going to place 6 single crochets in this magic circle. and 6. Pulling gently to close that ring, we're going to go right in to the first stitch of the first round with a single crochet. And placing a stitch marker, we're going to increase in each stitch all around. 2 single crochets in each stitch all around, with a total of 12 single crochets at the end. And remember that first crochet there we did to finish off the round and start the round counts as our first crochet. So that's 2 in the first stitch. Here's 2 single crochets in the next stitch. And continue that all on around. And 2 single crochets in that last stitch of the round. Now we're going to single crochet all around, but we're going to leave the bottom 3 stitches undone. So just a single crochet in each stitch until we reach 3 from the end of the row. It's going to curve a little, and that's okay. And then there we are, 3 at the end of the round. We're going to chain 1, turn our work, and continue with single crochets until we get back to the stitch marker. Just 1 single crochet in each stitch. And then 1 last single crochet in the last stitch. Cut that off with a long enough tail to sew the center of the ear onto the ear, and then sew the entire ear onto the head.
12 to 15 inches ought to be enough.
In the next stitch, place a slip stitch to finish up that ear, and then pull through the ends, giving it a gentle tug. Now for the center of the ear, grab your alternate color, the color you used for your muzzle, and make a magic ring. We'll place 6 single crochets in that magic ring. And 6. Give that tail end there a gentle tug to close that ring, and then single crochet at the top of that first stitch of the round. Replacing your stitch marker, And we're going to do an increase all around, 2 single crochets in each stitch, or for a total of 12 single crochets. And 2 last single crochets in that last stitch. And here we'll do a slip stitch at the top of that first stitch of the round. Cut your yarn. And pull that tail end through your loop, giving it a gentle tug. With opposite sides together, you can use your tail ends as a little bit of a stuffing. We don't need much here. Thread that needle. And we'll sew this inner circle onto the ear. Just the back loop only of your opposite color. And that finishes off your ear. Go ahead and make a second one, just like this first one. I'll meet back up with you to sew those onto the head. So now that we have 2 ears here, we'll find our placement. And we're going to go from the very center. And this is totally up to you where you'd like to place them. But I usually use the center as a guide, and about 1 stitch over from the center. So here's the center, 1 stitch over, and insert your needle and begin sewing.
You can use stitch markers to help hold your ear in place.
We're just going to go through that center stitch on that opposite color there, just so that our other color yarn doesn't show through and look out of place there. And then continue sewing. And then for added reinforcement, we'll just double back and sew through again. And then we'll tie it off. And one more for good measure. And then we'll just poke that needle right through into the other side. Go ahead and sew your other ear to this side. Looking at that center again and placing that ear straight across from the other, 1 stitch over. Insert your needle and begin sewing that ear on. And then tie off when you're finished. And you can tie a couple of those yarns that are on the inside together for added security. Next, we'll place the eyes, and whether you decided to crochet in the round or use safety eyes, which I have here. We'll just place those just right above that muzzle there, closer to diagonal with that inner part of the ear, and then the other. Do much the same. Look at the inner part of the ear and come on down to the muzzle. That looks to be 3 stitches in between the eyes and 1 stitch between the eye and the muzzle. And this placement is totally up to you if you'd like them farther apart or closer together. Make sure that's where you want them before placing your backs on. To begin our rows of decrease, we will single crochet 1 stitch in the next 4 single crochets. Two, 3, and 4, followed by a decrease in the next 2 stitches. Repeat that 4 single crochets in the next 4 stitches, followed by a decrease, and we'll do that all around until we meet back up with the stitch marker. And a decrease in those last 2 stitches.
And at this point, sew on your eyebrows. I thought I was recording, and mistakenly I wasn't.
At this point, we'll stuff the inside with fiber fill to our liking, not too full,
as we still have a row or 2 of decreases to crochet on.
Poke down around the edges, get a good shape that way. And I'm going to leave it at that so that I can get a few more rounds on, and then we'll come back and stuff that a little more. Okay, continuing on with the next round of decreases, we'll single crochet 2 in the next 2 stitches. Followed by a decrease in the next 2 stitches, totaling 1 decrease. single crochet in the next 2 stitches, followed by a decrease. I will meet back up with you at the end of the row.
And now let's crochet those front legs.
Starting with a magic ring with the opposite color, we're going to work 6 single crochets into the magic ring. One, close your ring and a single crochet in the first stitch of the last round, which counts as your first single crochet of this second round. In that same stitch, place another single crochet. And in every stitch around, we'll do an increase. 2 single crochets in every stitch. For a total of 12 stitches. Next, we'll do a round of single crochets, 12 stitches total.
And a single crochet in that last stitch.
We'll cut our yarn here and switch over to the body color now, if you're using 2 colors. Starting with a slip knot, placing that right on the hook with the same color you just finished. Pulling through that loop gently. And then your end pieces. Put a couple knots in them. They'll be on the inside and they won't show. Tucking them inside, turning that paw inside out.
Or right side out, I should say.
We'll do 2 rows of singles until we get back to where we began the row with the opposite color. Place a stitch marker if you're using the same color. 2 rows of single crochets totaling 12 stitches in both rows. At this point, we need to put a little stuffing in that paw. Tucking it on in there good. We'll put a couple crisscrosses to hold that stuffing into that paw, as we won't stuff the leg after we're done crocheting it.
Using a piece of yarn about 12 to 15 inches long.
So we'll just go into our stitch here and straight over to the other side. And then directly across, we're just going to put an X over the top of that stuffing. Bringing the stitch down. There we go. That'll hold that in place. Just cut off that excess there. This next round will be a round of decreases. We'll single crochet 3, decrease in the next 2, single crochet 3 in the next 3 stitches, followed by a decrease. And that'll bring us down to 10 stitches per round. In the next 10 rows will just be a row of
Single crochets.
10 stitches in each round for 10 rows. And here we are at the end of the 10th row. We're going to cut that yarn. Pulling that through your loop and giving it a tug. Tuck that end on the inside. And then do another one just like this. I will meet back up with you when there are 2. And here we are with the 2 front legs.
And this concludes part 1 of our Bear Lovey Snuggler. Please stay tuned for part 2. Thank you for joining me. Don't forget to subscribe.